Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Bojana, for those very, very generous words. It's a bit like hearing your own funeral oration, but I do assure you, I've not gone yet. Harold Wilson famously said that a week is a long time in politics. Well, I've got 10 weeks to go, and 10 weeks in digital is a long time to the power of 10, and there's a lot of politics going on, in case you hadn't noticed. So it's a great pleasure to be with you this morning, and to see a lot of old friends, and possibly just reflect a little bit on what we can learn from 7 years that's relevant to what's going on now. I think the first point I would make is that it's a miracle that I'm still here. You see, 7 years is a traditional time for apprenticeships. I'm just about ready to start now. But 7 years, it's been a time when there's been so much change in the digital space, and so much change in the economy as a whole. I think one thing I have to be very thankful for is that I'm in a job, and that you're in a job, because lots of people aren't. And one of the reasons that I'm in a job is that the Information Commissioner in the UK is this peculiar animal, a corporation soul, appointed by Her Majesty the Queen. And I think we ought, on this auspicious day, the occasion of her 90th birthday, to wish Her Majesty many happy returns of the day. Because in my warrant, appointing me as the Information Commissioner, she describes me as trusty and well-beloved, so I think I should return the compliment. It's a point I like to make, that the independence of the Data Protection Authority in the UK is established because the Information Commissioner, once appointed, can only be removed by joint resolution of both Houses of Parliament and dismissed by Her Majesty the Queen. So it's kind of a good job to have in a recession. And looking back over 7 years, what a recession it's been. You are in an area that's been growing, but a lot of other areas haven't, and it's as well to remember that. And the ICO over 7 years, I think, reflects the growth in the importance of the digital business, because the extra responsibilities that we've been given by Parliament mean that if you compare the headcount now with the headcount when I came in, the growth has been spectacular. So much more to do. We've had to do, as they say, better for less. We've had to find new ways of doing things. But if you look at full-time equivalents, in 2009, we had just over 300 staff, and it's now just over 400. It's been a 35% increase in the full-time equivalent of people working at the ICO. And that's supported not by government money, not by granting aid, because that, for the freedom of information side of the business, has been consistently cut year after year after year. It's been the growth in notifications under the Data Protection Act, the growth in people signing up as data controllers, and that's provided the resources for the Data Protection Authority here in the UK to do the job that Bojana's been describing. And as Trevor said, it's a good time to be a privacy professional too, isn't it? Because we've heard that the data protection regulation will require the recruitment of 28,000 data protection officers. The game that we're all in is making sure that we can get the benefits that digital offers while avoiding the risks. Now, the benefits that digital offers, if you think back over 7 years, part of my standard stump speech, we'll be hearing from Lauren from Transport for London shortly, but part of my standard stump speech when I started was, isn't it exciting, all the wonderful things that can be done by mashing digital information, looking at transport maps of London, looking at accident statistics and planning safe cycle routes. This was before we ever got to Silicon Roundabout and all that sort of thing. But clever people in bike sheds in Hackney were developing apps that would make for safe cycling in London. And all of us are in the business of making sure that digital delivers the good things and that we avoid the pitfalls, that we find the opportunities and the growth and the prosperity that comes from that, but we avoid the threats. It's been said, I don't know who said it, I've been shamelessly repeating it, that we thought that digital was the new oil, and then we discovered that it was also the new asbestos. So it's about managing the threats as well as the opportunities, and that's the business that you're in. When I was attending the recent IAPP Global Summit in Washington, on the subway, there was an ad for a digital security service. Wasn't a very good ad because I don't remember who it was advertising, but I do remember the line, which was, "Digital is rock star, but it needs a good manager or it trashes everything." And it's the balance of the opportunities and the threats that is the business that we're all in. But at the Global Privacy Summit, listening to some of the speeches, I wondered whether we actually are in quite the same business, because the danger is that some people are inclined to use the term privacy when they actually just mean digital. Some of the speeches that I heard, you could just take out the word privacy and put in the word digital, and it was exactly the same message. In other words, it was all about the opportunities and none about the threats. Now, as the Data Protection Authority for the UK, the Information Commissioner's Office is very much about advice and guidance and enforcement to make sure that the threats to personal privacy are properly managed. And if we get too excited about all the wonderful opportunities and don't manage our way through the regulation, then we're not doing anyone any favours. And I heard a little bit too much buccaneering speech from the people charging off to the great new world, not bearing in mind sufficiently the way in which you can do that, but you can do that safely. And if you don't do that safely, then you're going to be in trouble with the authorities. It's no good saying, well, we don't, it's the brave new world, we don't need all this regulation, it's just getting in the way. The clever thing to do is to work out where you want to go and how you're going to get there, but making sure that you don't disrespect individuals' autonomy and the rights of citizens and consumers. And the Information Commissioner's Office, under whoever's leadership, is going to be constantly making the point to you, this is how you get the best of both worlds. This is how you get the opportunities and the growth and the excitement of doing things a new and exciting way, but you do it without disrespecting people's privacy. And I found myself playing a little game because I like anagrams, and I discovered that whether you call it privacy or privacy, there's only one letter difference between privacy and piracy. And be ambitious, do what you want to do, but stick within the rules, and the Information Commissioner's Office will be your ally. But get it wrong, and you're going to be in trouble with the regulator, whoever it is. Now, if you were attending the session on the jurisprudence around the General Data Protection Regulation yesterday, you will have heard my colleague Steve Wood talking about some of the things that the ICO is doing to make sure that the regulation, when it comes in finally in 2 years' time, is something that can be complied with relatively easily. I'm sure he will have referred you to the ICO website, www.ico.org.uk, where you can access our 12 steps to take now to compliance with the new regulation. Yesterday we were holding an event for small business in Birmingham, and we were bigging up our SME toolkit, which you can also find on the website. We've been conducting stakeholder consultations, and we're standing ready for advice and guidance. And I had a call yesterday for one of my opposite number data protection authorities in Europe saying, can you send us all your stuff, because we need to do that too, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So working with our colleagues in the Article 29 Working Party, we're going to make sure that we are effective partners in implementing the data protection regulation. Bojana said some heroic things about fines. Now, I don't know whether Spain fines more than the UK or UK fines more than Spain. What I do know is Spain gets to keep the money, and I have to hand it over to George Osborne. But the fines that we do impose are pretty small beer. I mean, it's not good a headline, is it? If you're hit with £350,000 fine for doing stupid things with nuisance phone calls. But I'm sure you will have heard, and it's a point that I think you need to take back and stress to your chairman and the board and your chief executive and your chief finance officer. It's not about £500,000 from the Information Commissioner anymore. Focus on 20 million euros, up to 20 million euros. Focus on up to 4% of global turnover. I think those are figures that should interest the chairman and the board and the chief executive and the chief finance officer, because they sure as hell will interest shareholders. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're suddenly going to go into a very butch world of fining everybody, but this regulation, the European General Data Protection Regulation, means business when it comes to enforcement. So that's the big stick in the cupboard. Yes, we want to work with you. Yes, we want to give clear advice and guidance. Yes, we want to enable good things to happen and show you ways of achieving what you want to achieve while sticking to the rules. But in the background, for those organisations that don't take any notice, for those organisations that don't care, for those organisations that think they can get away with it, it's not a question of shrugging off up to £500,000 if you're some great global company that can well afford it. This is serious money and serious enforcement which you would do well to plan for very carefully. And if you look at those 12 steps, a lot of it is about raising awareness within the organisation of the role which people like you need to play. It's no longer something that happens down the end of a corridor and we don't care very much about it. This is absolutely slap bang on the risk register of any organisation, commercial or otherwise, and needs to be taken on board. Now, Bojana said we've dealt with the Privacy Shield, and now we can move on and think about the regulation. Well, I wish we had dealt with the Privacy Shield, because I saw a story running on Reuters yesterday that some high-up figure in the American administration was saying, yeah, we'll read very carefully what the Article 29 Working Party had to say about the regulation, but basically we're not very interested in saying much more about this. I paraphrase. The Article 29 Working Party of all the data protection authorities was reviewing the documentation that emerged from the European Union and American negotiations on the Privacy Shield. And we asked some very simple and basic questions which are about clarification. And if the data protection authorities, who are fairly expert in this area, are asking questions, then you can be pretty sure that the Court of Justice of the European Union will also be asking questions. So it'd be very sensible if both the European Union and the Americans actually answered the questions. And the questions arise about the lack of clarity within the documentation around the justification for bulk data collection, the independence of the ombudsman, and by the way, it is an ombudsman, even if the post holder is female. It's a Swedish word. You can't suddenly put person into it. The European ombudsman is Emily O'Reilly. The American ombudsman is also a woman. It's not a sexist point, it's just Swedish. And the third point is that we were concerned about processing of information transferred to the States, which then moves on to third countries. Now, these are perfectly reasonable questions to ask, and if there aren't answers, there's only going to be trouble down the road. So I would urge US corporates who have a great interest in getting this thing sorted out so we can move on to other more constructive uses of our time, to have a word in the ear of the administration to get answers to those questions, and then we can all move on safely. Because the amount of data that's moving between Europe and the States is, of course, massive, and that's what underpins the prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. So we need to get on with that. A final thought, I think, really, is that what's driving things at the Information Commissioner's office at the moment is not just the change of guard. In fact, the change of guard is almost peripheral, because you've got 400 people working away on information rights, both access to information and data privacy. And the General Data Protection Regulation is absolutely the focus of our activities. That's what we're getting ready for. That's what we're gearing up to advise you about. There's a whole change program in the organisation designed to make sure that we can meet our obligations under the regulation to help you to meet yours. And we have to work out how we fit in with the European Data Protection Board and our colleagues in the Article 29 Working Party and so on. So that's really the focus of events. But at the end of this month, there is a change of guard. I'm really delighted that the Commissioner for British Columbia, Elizabeth Denham, has been identified as the government's preferred candidate as my successor. I benefited hugely from taking on from Richard Thomas back in 2009, and it's really great to see an experienced a privacy commissioner like Elizabeth Denham being nominated. She goes before a parliamentary committee next week, and it's really good news. At the ICO, we've got a really good team. Yes, okay, it was careless of me. Lady Bracknell was right. I managed to lose 2 deputy commissioners, but there's a fantastic team still in place that will carry things forward. Absolutely focused on the priorities that are of great importance at this difficult time. And I know that Elizabeth will be a great leader of the ICO, and will continue with the approach that was developed by Richard Thomas, carried on by myself, to make sure that the ICO is an effective partner in delivering information rights in the UK, and an influential voice within Europe, so that together we can find the oil without the asbestos, and hit the stars without trashing the right of citizens and consumers to get the benefits of digital, but also retain their privacy, their security, and their respect. So I wish you all the very best of success in this very important sector in which you work, and ask you to take back the message to your organisation that respecting information rights is the sine qua non for opening up all the excitements that the digital world offers. And if senior people in organisations are not prepared to give their time and attention to the rights of consumers and citizens, then they're not going to enjoy the benefits and the opportunities, and yes, the profits of the digital world. Thank you.